Hello and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where forget asking whether or not the box office has a pulse, because it is pulsating. We have a super hot hit on our hands with Across the Spider-Verse. So much to discuss, so many potential ramifications. It's so exciting. But also, other movies are making bank too, which is real swell to see. So let's break it down. But first off, I want to point out that Vin Diesel has got to be wondering what he's doing wrong, that he is the only non-Disney movie that audiences are not rallying behind in the current political climate. What do you think he's doing wrong? Did Fast and Furious simply overstay its welcome? That's crazy. He's like, hey guys, don't you want to stick it to Disney by seeing my movie? And speaking of the current political climate, that audiences across the board have rallied behind Miles Morales only strengthens the argument that original characters of color are far more viable in the marketplace than race-bended characters. So yes, Marvel has another Black Panther level character on their hands with Miles Morales. Perhaps maybe in part because of the current loss of Black Panther too. That might have added to this potent formula of what's going on here, this perfect storm. And surely Kevin Feige is going to want a piece of him, considering how much Tom Holland has boosted several Avengers movies to date. I'm sure Kevin Feige is looking over at this space very closely. In fact, some of us feel, I do, that Kevin Feige's whole fascination with the multiverse came from seeing how great Into the Spider-Verse was. So he's like looking at Miles Morales and all this money, and he's like, yoink. So while Amy Pascal is promising a live-action Miles Morales very soon, let's see if, like Peter Parker, this becomes another character that Sony and Marvel share. I'm torn on it. I think that it would be, I don't want Miles to be stuck in Peter Parker's shadow over in the MCU. But at the same time, outside of the Spider-Verse movies, Sony's really dropped the ball with their Spider-Man movies. So I would like MCU in there for quality control, although some people would maybe feel that's an oxymoron statement these days. But they're doing better than Sony. So I would like that to be the situation. I hope that Kevin Feige also will be involved in the casting. So sure, although they didn't want Tom Holland. So maybe not totally. Don't rush the casting, as we talked about on Friday. Take your time, Amy. Take your time. Do it right. Don't do it fast. All right, so sure, Sony still doesn't have their own Spider-Man to interact with their other multitude of Spider-Verse characters that are stuck in creative purgatory with no hero to fight them. So they might be tempted to make Miles Morales be that Spider-Man for them. But just look at all the money that even the solo Tom Holland movies have made because of their association with the MCU and their ability to use characters from the MCU. So let Miles have that as well. So clearly, as I've said before, the answer remains to make Andrew Garfield Sony's own Spider-Man. He wants to come back in their separate universe, while Tom Holland's Peter Parker and a live-action Miles Morales are in the MCU. What do you think Sony and Marvel should do? Share your thoughts down below. But yeah, just like Mario, people sure love Spider-Man. Woo! You think Batman's popular? Mario and Spider-Man are right there next to him. And just about a year and a half after the historic blockbuster No Way Home, ka-ching as well, here comes Across the Spider-Verse as another huge Spider-Man hit for Sony. Third biggest opening ever for any Spider-Man movie, although not counting inflation. But Sony ain't never selling Spider-Man back to Marvel. He is holding up their entire studio. They really have nothing else. Also, as I've told you before, they own a part of the character. It's just so much, and that's why, as we discussed when the deal happened, that's why Marvel was willing to work with Sony, because they know they ain't never getting Spider-Man back as well. So one also has to wonder if animated movies are doing so well because there's no talent front and center to divide audiences, and there's no one even off camera, behind the camera, the talent that's working specifically on the films, to even these two animation studios, right? Illumination and Sony Animation. Who knows anybody who works over there? I mean, we know Chris Meledandri, if you're really into movies, you know who he is, but these people aren't making any waves, which is, also kind of a sad commentary as well. But I think you have to notice the pattern. So same with Mario. Both these movies are all about the brand, And, I'm really glad that Spider-Verse is a very diverse film, and I'm so glad that it's succeeding. but it doesn't have any messages really. Although I think the next one might have some messages, as I discussed in my spoiler review, what they're kind of setting up there. But as of right now, it's just entertainment really, which was said the same about Mario. So that's fascinating to consider. Also, I think comic book fans gave Spider-Verse a massive boost because when the weekend started, it was like, it was incredible to see this movie gain momentum over the 3 days. Like moviegoers, casual moviegoers started to realize the tickets were scarce. They're like, maybe we should go see this movie. And then they're like, oh my God, there's no tickets. So that created a run on theaters to go see the super hot movie opening weekend, especially because it only has premium screens for one weekend. So people are like, I gotta get in, I got to. I saw 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock showings almost totally sold out. That's amazing. We're going to talk about adult animation momentarily. So, I mean, look at the first day headlines that were generated. Second biggest Thursday night ever for any animated movie. And the best first day of 2023. Who doesn't want a piece of that? Not just Kevin Feige, but all of us. Everybody loves a party. So what does Spider-Verse's second weekend drop look like? That's going to be the question of the summer as we're getting into a situation where we have movies back to back to back to back. Why? Why did you do it, Hollywood? Tom Cruise is already upset about it. And Spider-Verse is set to go up against Transformers and lose all its premium screens on Friday. Oh, I wonder, sometimes when one movie doesn't materialize and another is super hot, they split the screens. And I wonder if a couple of premium screens will get thrown to Spider-Verse by Saturday. Well, let's see what happens. That'll be very interesting to see. But we're talking about this weekend, baby. We'll talk about next weekend. But just by a smidge, Spider-Verse has edged out Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 to be the second biggest opening of the year. Wow! With about 4 times the box office of the first movie. It's all thanks to Netflix, where Sony has had a long-time deal because they don't have their own streaming service. So they put their movies on Netflix, and the Oscar-winning box office underperformer, sorry to say, it did not do very well at the box office, particularly for an animated comic book movie. But it didn't do very well, but it managed to grow a huge fan base over several years on Netflix, who were ready to show up when the sequel finally hit. There hasn't been a home video glow-up like that since Austin Powers back in the 1990s. For animated movies, Spider-Verse is the 6th biggest opening of all time. And note that these are all sequels except for Mario. So, Mario 2 is going to be so big. This also finally put Sony Animation on the map, and they're likely to win yet another Oscar with this groundbreaking film. And speaking of behind-the-scenes talent, Kemp Powers was poached from Pixar, and Joaquim Dos Santos was poached from the Last Airbender franchise. Wait till Avatar Studios gets online. Ooh! And on that note, here we go. Adult skewing animation enters the West. Longtime favorite in the East, some of those movies recently breaking through in the Western box office. But I'm talking about movies that really blow up in the West and come out of Hollywood. Animation has been made popular also by streaming with adults because genre storytelling embraced it because those things can be told very cheaply compared to live action, but still tons of action. Like not only Avatar The Last Airbender, but we're talking about like Castlevania, Arcane. These have all been stepping stones to where we are very excitedly finding ourselves going. As a result, instead of this movie being driven by kids and families, 63% of Spider-Verse's audience was male, 61% 18 to 34. And look at these demos! Pretty evenly split across the board. This is the kind of demos that will get a studio executive to salivate. This is what you want, and here it is. This is what you usually see for a top-tier live-action superhero movie, which is made for $200 to $250 million. Yet, animation used to be prohibitively expensive, but with the rise of VFX-driven blockbusters, suddenly it's the cheaper alternative. Spider-Verse was made for just $100 million. That's the same as the Shazam 2 and John Wick 4 budgets. And John Wick 4 opened, solid, very nicely, but this is an even bigger opening weekend for the same amount of money. The MCU has tried to get into animation with What If, but had mixed results on that. Although the animation was good there, but it wasn't this good. And they have X-Men 97 coming out someday. But I think you'll see more studios now give animation a whirl now that they've seen these boffo results. One studio has to take the chance, And then everybody else goes, oh, it looks like you've got something there. And they start looking over their shoulder. Same with how Marvel built a cinematic universe, and now everybody wants one. So that's very exciting for adult animation fans, though. Warner Brothers Discovery, please, everybody, get some of this. So Warner Brothers Discovery already has an animated Lord of the Rings movie set for April 2024. I hope it's good. They better take a closer look at that because the bar has been raised. And of course, DC had been working on an animated Batman Beyond movie, which was recently revealed, which seems, by the way, story-wise, to have a lot of similarities to Spider-Verse. Hearkening to the mythology, with Bruce Wayne still in the picture, the chance for some really artistic flourishes. So that's currently shelved, but maybe Gunn and Safran might want to consider bringing that back online. I sure would. I most definitely would. But remember, keep it faithful to the original. And the nostalgia play seems to be getting more and more clear-cut. As for Disney, after crushing the competition in 2019, every other studio wondered if maybe they should just go home. But now they find themselves in a political war with, well, a lot of people. Disney hate, unfortunately, gets clicks, and that is really keeping this thing from going away. Disney is trying to course correct to a degree, but without, going against everything the company stands for. And as we've discussed before, the people who have really helped create the company and make it what it is today. They are definitely in a conundrum. But the drama, all that drama, just like with Warner Brothers Discovery in DC, is having an effect on their brand. On the positive side for The Little Mermaid, it's still pacing just a touch ahead of Aladdin domestically. But on the negative side, the overseas box office just is not materializing. And that was crucial to Aladdin's success. In 2 weekends, the movie is about $320 million worldwide, but I still think it ends up just at about 500 to 600 million. And if that, I would say at this point, it might have a 4 in front of it, which would be very bad. Some of you are like, why though, Grace? Well, that's because it has to compete with the other films. All the other Disney Renaissance adaptations, besides Mulan, made it into the billion-dollar club. Even some that weren't from the Disney Renaissance. So how does The Little Mermaid be so far off from that same performance? You don't want to be standing next to Mulan when it comes to comparisons. Another live-action adaptation, by the way, that made significant changes from the original animated film. And I'm not just talking about casting Halle Bailey. Key sequences and songs were removed from The Little Mermaid, and the look of the sidekicks might have also been a major problem, more than we thought. Still, The Little Mermaid could end up being huge on Disney Plus down the line and grow its audience there, like other Lin-Manuel Miranda hits, Moana and Encanto. Both weak at the box office as well. Start to see a pattern emerge. Next, Disney continues to try and Disney again. They have the top. They have after Spider-Verse. They've got the next 3. So next, Disney continues to try and carve out a space for themselves in the horror marketplace. They're like, seeing a lot of people make money here, and now they have this 20th century banner. Why not use it for horror? The Boogeyman opened about the same as Barbarian, just actually a little bit better, but the film wasn't nearly as well reviewed. Then here comes Guardians with finally a significant drop, not huge, but not what it was, in its 5th weekend. I think Marvel can definitely feel good about this film's box office performance, but they shouldn't feel like everything's fixed. Things are not back to normal. I still believe the Marvel brand is slightly damaged, and not just from all the Disney drama. I think Thor: Love and Thunder and Quantumania have badly burned fans. So here's hoping that Secret Invasion, which is coming up fast, is really, really good. And yes, Super Mario Bros. Has reached 1.3 billion worldwide, putting it at number 19 on the all-time chart worldwide, and only 2nd behind Frozen 2 when it comes to animated movies. And still no word on the next moves in the movie space, although a lot of you have said that Nintendo is infamous for taking their sweet time with developments, announcing next projects, and it looks like they're going to operate that way in Hollywood as well. Again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I told you, if I were Universal Illumination after this box office, I'd be like, Nintendo, baby, you do whatever you want. Are you comfy? You need another pillow? You want a drink? Never leave. Over on streaming, Nielsen's charts for the beginning of May. Things continue to be a little quiet over here, with no juggernaut hit in the streaming space right now. Bridgerton's spin-off Queen Charlotte easily topped the overall chart with its debut, and Netflix was able to claim yet another #1 spot, week to week to week. I think that just speaks also to just how big their audience is. The Coca-Cola of streaming. Speaking of Sony and Netflix's deal, A Man Called Otto hit the streamer after its run on digital and placed higher than we've seen any movie able to do in a while. And Ted Lasso sunk a little bit again, but at least it's still in the overall top 10. We rarely see Apple TV on these charts. What are they going to do now that Lasso has ended, right? Seemingly. Expect them to push very hard for those spin-offs that have been discussed. Who would you want to see continue? I think they've set it up just to continue without Jason Sudeikis, quite frankly. I think that's very clearly how it's been set up. And I got to tell you, I would watch that show. I don't know how many people would watch it. And I think when you think back to the way that the shift in the story focus for the past season, that maybe was the plan all along, just to keep it intact, no spin-offs, just exactly as is, but just without Jason Sudeikis. I'd give it a whirl for at least one more season and see how audiences reacted. Why not? I mean, people are already saying it's not as good. So, I mean, I think Apple TV, this is their like only sparkly crown jewel. So, especially because Severance apparently has a lot of season 2 issues. I would just go for it. All right, on the originals chart, here the numbers get so low that The Mandalorian and Beef popped back in here, with viewers binging their completed seasons. And over on acquired, Succession is still pretty close to the bottom. With movies, though, not a lot happening here either, although there's Encanto and Moana, still. And Peter Pan and Wendy also managed not to totally fall off the chart in its second weekend, so that's pretty good. On Netflix's charts, Jennifer Lopez is Mother for 3 weeks in a row now. Huge hit for her. Wow. And Jacob Elordi fans powered his new movie to a second-place debut. I'd say tell James Gunn while he's getting ready to cast Superman. I know a lot of people wanted Jacob Elordi. You could be like, look at this. But just look at the number 2 spot. That number is actually kind of weak. Perhaps Elordi, I think he's turning into another Noah Centineo, who also joined DC, and that turned out not to be a good idea. Also, Sony movies continue to do very well on Netflix. And then on iTunes, while Super Mario Bros. And John Wick Chapter 4 continue to dominate, not only is Into the Spider-Verse in third place as fans celebrate the sequel, get ready to watch the sequel, but Across the Spider-Verse is even in the top 10 with pre-orders. Oh, that's amazing. John Wick 4 enjoyed that same feather in its cap as well. And it's great to see BlackBerry find an audience on digital. I decided to finally check it out. The word of mouth had been so strong when it was in theaters, and I was not disappointed. I was looking for something new to watch. Loved it. If you enjoyed Air, I think Air took some of the air out of BlackBerry sales. But if you enjoyed Air, you will love this movie. Very well done. It's another great business movie. And I agree with many that Glenn Howerton, knocked it out of the park. I don't know if this movie has the capital to get him into the awards race, this coming awards race, but he deserves it. I'd love to that would be such a sweet thing to see him get some nominations for acting. He's so good in this movie. As for this coming weekend, the summer movie machine continues to churn. It's getting started with Transformers Rise of the Beasts hitting theaters and yoink, taking all those premium screens. On digital, on Tuesday, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and Master Gardener both become available. While for streaming movies, Avatar 2 finally trickles down to Disney Plus and Max on Wednesday. While on Friday, Hulu has Flamin' Hot, which looks like such a fun movie, but I was a little discouraged from watching it because it turns out that story is totally not true. Then, when it comes to new series, Wednesday we have the Arnold documentary on Netflix. They're all in on Arnold over there. I can't wait to see what Fubar's numbers look like, probably next week. The UK's Somewhere Boy becomes available here in the States on Hulu, while on Thursday, anyone watch Somewhere Boy overseas? How was it? While on Thursday, you've got the final season of Never Have I Ever dropping on Netflix, as well as all episodes of Based on a True Story on Peacock. Love that cast. Gonna check that out. Then on Friday, Tom Holland's already horribly reviewed The Crowded Room starts on Apple TV. What's that, another Cherry? Which was also on Apple TV, by the way. Tom Holland, why can you not pick projects outside of Spider-Man? Well, Uncharted did well. Uncharted did well. And Max has the political documentary, First Five, about Finland's recent female prime minister and her all-female cabinet. You know, that's very inspiring on the face of it, but it had such a bad ending. I wonder if the documentary will cover that. But let's just say she recently resigned, and so it's not great. Not great. All right, so it was sad. All right, so anyway, she didn't even fight. All right, so anyway, that's this week's movie math. What have you been watching? What do you plan? Although I don't know what's going on in the Finland political scene. Anyone from Finland? Would love to hear your thoughts. All right, so that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And what are your thoughts on Spider-Verse's amazing opening weekend and the potential ramifications? What does it mean for not only, I think, what audiences are looking for, but for Hollywood's future? All exciting stuff. Share those thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.